Hello and welcome to the Past Functional Skills video solutions for the Edexcel Functional Skills English Level 2 Reading Practice Paper 3. Before watching this video, make sure that you've read the 3 sources in the insert and you have attempted to complete the paper yourself. Question 1. Your relative is interested in the amount of time it takes to prepare for a driving test. Using text A, identify how long the average person requires for lessons and practice before passing. So here we need to use the text to identify how long the average person requires for lessons and practice before passing their driving test. So we need to find lessons and practice. So to do this, we will need to scan the text for any numbers because it tells us in the question that we're looking for how long someone takes. So if we have a quick scan for numbers, we see that in paragraph 2, it says that 45 hours of lessons and 22 hours of additional practice are required. So 45 and 22, and just make sure that you've written those in the right areas for the marks. Question 2. Which word best describes the style of text A? Is it disappointed, admiring, pessimistic, or reassuring? So if you didn't know the meaning of any of these words, you could look them up in a dictionary. And the style is essentially sort of how the text feels overall. So the overall impression that the text gives you. So does it leave us feeling disappointed, let down, admiring, in awe or impressed, pessimistic, so negative and expecting the worst, or is it reassuring? Does it make us feel confident? So if we have a quick look at text A, we can see that passing your test can be a daunting prospect, so that might suggest that we are looking at pessimistic here. It could be disappointing or disappointed. However, as we move along, it does become quite reassuring. It says that it's okay to be anxious. You can feel comfortable driving, and it's got a very reassuring tone overall. It makes the reader feel a little bit more comfortable about driving. So it's not disappointed, admiring, or pessimistic. It is a reassuring style of text overall. Question 3. Which 2 of these quotations from text A are examples of formal language? A. Okay to be anxious during your test. B. Simulates the test experience. C. On the date of your test. D. How to ditch those L plates. And E. A warm-up for the real thing. So here we're looking and finding 2 quotations that are examples of formal language. Now the difference between informal language and formal language is that formal language is the kind of language that you might hear a newsreader use. You would use it in a professional environment, so for things like a CV. You would use it in a courtroom or any kind of professional environment. Informal language you would use with friends and family, people that are in your inner circle, informal language. So let's have a look. A, okay to be anxious. So okay here is a very informal term. It's the kind of thing that you would say to a family member or a friend. So that's incorrect because we're looking for formal language. B, simulates the test experience. Now that's definitely formal. How do we know? Well, a newsreader might say it, and we've also got these quite sophisticated words, simulates and experience here. C, on the date of your test. Well, there's nothing informal about that. We haven't got any sort of slang words used, no words that you would only use with family and friends, so that is formal. D, how to ditch those L plates. That's a very informal way of saying how to learn to drive, ditch those L plates. It might be something that you would say to a friend. And E, a warm-up for the real thing. So a warm-up for the real thing. Thing is a pretty informal term there, and a warm-up, that's almost like a simile that's being used to describe it. So that's particularly informal. You'd probably say that to friends and family. You wouldn't hear someone say that in a professional environment. So the answers here are B and C. Question 4. You've been asked to add subheadings to each paragraph in text A. Number each subheading from 1 to 5 to show which best matches each paragraph. 2 have been done for you. So in this question, we need to read each paragraph in text A, and then we need to decide which subheading out of the ones below would best fit each paragraph. So which subheading summarises what the paragraph is about. So if we take a look at the first one, take your time, we can see that paragraph 2 says that you should make certain you're ready. So that implies that you are taking your time. And then it says allow plenty of time as well. So take your time would be an appropriate subheading for paragraph 2 there. Preparing on the day. If we have a look, we can see that paragraph 4 mentions the date of your test and it tells you how to prepare, says that you can have a lesson and you need to bring your provisional driving licence with you. Getting on the road. Which paragraph best summarises that? Well, we've got paragraph 1. Getting on the road suggests that you are being introduced to driving for the first time, and paragraph 1 says it is an essential introduction. Managing your nerves. So we're looking for anything about managing stress and anxiety before a driving test. And paragraph 5 says it's okay to be anxious during your test and you can take deep breaths to manage your nerves. So that is a suitable subheading for paragraph 5 there. And then know what to expect. But we've only got one paragraph left and that is paragraph 3. And paragraph 3, sure enough, explains what we should expect. So a mock exam, mock test, will tell us what we are going to expect during the real test. So just make sure that you've read each paragraph carefully and you're choosing an appropriate subheading that matches up with each one. Question 5. What does each of these quotations from text B suggest about driving? Stepping stone to adulthood. So here, if you didn't know what stepping stone meant, you could look it up in a dictionary and you would see that it means a stone used for mounting or ascending. So this is being used as a metaphor here, something that doesn't really mean what it says it means. And we've got to infer from the text that this is about a transition. A stepping stone to adulthood is a key moment in transitioning to adulthood. And then what does a status symbol suggest? Well, if you look that up in a dictionary, status symbol, you will see that it is an object or habit by which the social or economic status of the possessor may be judged. So a status symbol is quite a well-known phrase, and you've just got to write the meaning of this in your own words. So here the student has written an expensive item to make you seem richer or better than others. So an expensive item which improves your status. Question 6. Text B includes both facts and opinions. Which one of these statements is a fact? Okay, so here we want to find the fact, and only one of these statements is a fact, so the rest will be opinions. What's the difference between a fact and an opinion? Well, a fact is something that we can prove, and an opinion is what somebody thinks or feels about something. And we can disagree with an opinion, but we can't disagree with a fact. So, A, young people are making fewer car journeys. Can we disagree with this? Is it somebody's opinion? Is it something that they think or feel? Well, no, it is a fact. You can prove that young people are making fewer car journeys you could tally it up and see on a graph. So that is a fact. B, young people do not earn enough money. Now that's an opinion, and the reason for that is it's up to you to decide how much enough would be for a young person. You can disagree with this. You can say, well, I actually think young people earn too much money and don't do enough work. C, young people only use digital communication. Well, that is somebody's opinion, and we know that that's not true. It's suggesting that young people do not talk to each other directly by word of mouth at all, that they only use digital communication, which we know is not a fact. And finally, D, young people pay too much for insurance. Well, how much is too much? That is up to you to decide. You can agree or disagree with this statement, which makes it an opinion. Question 7. According to text B, what percentage of 17 to 20-year-olds had a driving licence in 2014? So in this question, we're trying to find a percentage. So we're going to be looking for a percentage mark or the word percent of 17 to 20-year-olds, focusing on this age group, had a driving licence in 2014. So we're going to scan the text and try and find this piece of information. So we've got some percentages here, and we're looking for 2014. So we don't want this top bit here talking about the 90s, we want 2014. And then we need to identify the correct age group, which in the question it specified we wanted 17 to 20-year-olds. So our answer will be 29%. Part B, which organisational feature is used to present this information? Well, if we have a look in the text, we can see that it's been presented using a bullet point list. So bullet points is the correct answer here. Question 8. Using text B, identify 2 ways in which young people today have an extended youth. So we're looking at text B and we want to find 2 ways that young people have an extended youth. So how is their childhood, their youth extended? How is it made longer? So we'll scan the text for any mentions of an extended youth, and we find that in this paragraph here, the extended youth of young people today is mentioned. And it says that they spend longer in education, so that's one way. Enter the workforce later. They settle down later. And all of these trends have reduced the necessity to own and use a car. So they're not owning and using cars either. So these factors are good options to choose, and this person has written that they spend more time in education and enter a workforce at an older age. Question 8b, using text B, identify 2 financial issues that put young people off driving. So here we're looking at text B again, and we want to find 2 financial issues, so things to do with money, with costs, that put young people off driving. So that means that it's discouraging them, it's making them not want to drive due to these financial issues. So if we scan the text for any mentions of money, then we will see that in this paragraph here, there is a decline in their income, in disposable income, and there's been a growth in low-paid jobs. So they've got low-paid jobs, they've got lower incomes. And they are also deterred by high costs to do with driving, especially car insurance. So high car insurance, and they pay a lot more for their car insurance. So these are financial issues, declining incomes and high costs associated with driving. Question 9. Using text C, give 2 quotations that suggest people can still pass despite making mistakes during their driving test. So here we want to look at text C and find 2 quotations suggesting that people still pass even when they've made mistakes during their driving test. So we'll scan through the text and we're looking for instances of people passing and having made mistakes. So if we look at Dee Dee's post, she says, I passed first time despite struggling to start the car. So that is one quotation you could use. And she also says, don't obsess about minor mistakes as these won't prevent you passing. And then Pavel says that it took him 2 goes to be successful. And on the second go, second time around, he somehow managed to get through. So he somehow managed to pass despite making some careless errors. So we've got mistakes mentioned here, and we've got people still passing even with minor mistakes. So the student has identified 2 relevant quotations: I passed first time despite struggling to start the car, and don't obsess over minor mistakes as these won't prevent you passing. Question 10. Using text C, identify 2 language features used to describe people's experiences of driving tests. Give an example to support each answer. So here we're looking at text C, and we need to find 2 language features that have been used to describe people's experiences of driving tests. So we're focusing on driving tests here, and we want 2 language features. Now, there are quite a lot of different language features that you could choose here, and you've got to make sure that you are identifying techniques correctly. So if you're not sure what something like a metaphor is or an idiom, then don't try and find examples for that. Just look for what you know. So the student here has identified direct address in the text, and they've given an example. Now, an example means a quotation. So they found direct address in the text won't prevent you passing. Now, direct address here is in the you. Direct address is when a writer directly addresses a reader, calls them you, and draws them into the text. And then they've also identified rule of 3, which is a valid language feature. And they've said, be confident, believe in yourself, and don't obsess. Now, this is an accurate identification of an example of rule of 3 because we've got 3 things in a list here: confident, believe in yourself, don't obsess. So we've got 2 language features and 2 examples. Question 11. Which one of these quotations from text C shows a negative view of driving examiners? So here we need to read these quotations here about text C, and we need to identify one of them that shows a negative view of driving examiners. So we're focusing on driving examiners, and we want to see if there are any negatives, anything bad about them. So option A, nothing can prepare you for the test experience. Now that doesn't mention driving examiners at all. It's saying that it's impossible to prepare, however good or bad examiners might be. So that's not showing us a negative view of driving examiners. B, my instructor says I need to calm down. Now, this might be seen as negative if the instructor is telling them off, telling them to calm down, but this is about an instructor, not an examiner. So that's incorrect. C, which was frustrating because I drove well otherwise. Well, they're not really blaming the examiner here. They are blaming a mistake that they made. If you look at the text, we can see that they were frustrated because they drove well otherwise is here, and they sped on the dual carriageway. So they're not criticising their examiner here, they're just criticising themselves. And then D, I think he was looking for a reason to fail me. So that is a negative view of a driving examiner here. The examiner has been trying to look for a reason to fail this person, doesn't want them to pass, is desperately trying to make them fail. It's painting them in a very bad light as quite a nasty person. Question 12. You may use a dictionary to answer this question. A daunting prospect. Give one word or phrase to replace daunting that keeps the meaning of this quotation from text A the same. So here we need to look at the quote, a daunting prospect, from text A, and we want to give a word or phrase that can replace that word daunting that's going to keep the meaning the same. So we need a word that means the same as daunting, and we can use a dictionary to find this. So daunting means causing fear or discouragement, or it's intimidating. So a very similar word to that is frightening. It's a daunting experience, a frightening experience. B, I can still vividly remember. Give one word or phrase to replace vividly to keep the meaning of the quotation the same. So this time we're going to look up vividly in the dictionary, and that means extremely brightly, intensely, or in a lively or dramatic way. So it's quite illuminated and easy to remember. So vividly can also mean clearly. Question 13. Compare similar ideas from text A and text C about how to pass your driving test. In your answer, you should give two similarities from these texts about how to pass your driving test, and give one quotation from text A and one quotation from text C to support each similarity. So there's quite a lot to unpack here. It's a question that has lots of marks attached to it. So, compare similar ideas. That means we're finding similarities. That's the first thing to notice. And we're looking only at text A and text C. We don't need to include anything about text B here. And we want to probably provide quite a balanced account of both of these texts. And we're focusing on how to pass your driving test specifically. So we need to find two similarities about how to pass your driving test from the texts. And then we need a quotation from each of the texts, from text A and text C, to support the first similarity, and another quotation from text A and another one from text C to support the second similarity. So here the student has written that both texts suggest taking a lesson before your test. Text A says, on the date of your test, have a lesson earlier in the day, and text C says, the third time I had a lesson just before my test, and that helped me get in the zone and stay sufficiently calm to follow the instructions and avoid silly mistakes. Both texts suggest that people should stay positive during their driving test. Text A says think positively by anticipating the opportunities you'll have after passing, and text C says be confident, believe in yourself, and don't obsess over minor mistakes, as these won't prevent you passing. So we know that we're comparing similar ideas here because the student has written about both texts. They've used that lovely comparative word, both, to show a similarity between the texts. So they are comparing. And they have mentioned text A and text C equally in both paragraphs. So they are focused on the text appropriately. They've also focused on how to pass your driving test. So focusing on the test. Test is mentioned in the quotations here. And we've got two similarities, both texts and both texts, and one quotation to support each one. So the first similarity is taking a lesson before your test. And we've got text A saying have a lesson earlier in the day, and a very similar quotation from text C saying have a lesson just before your test. So both of these are saying the same thing, take a lesson before your test. It's a similarity. And in the second one, people should stay positive during the test. So text A says think positively, anticipating the opportunities, and text C says be confident, believe in yourself. Confident, believing in yourself, thinking positively, not obsessing over minor mistakes. So they've identified two very similar quotations here as well. So overall, they have fully answered the question with appropriate quotations, 4 quotations altogether, 2 from text A and 2 from text C, to support 2 similarities about passing driving tests. Question 14. Which one of these statements about the language used in text A and text B is correct? So in this question we need to read the statements here and decide which one of these is correct based on text A and text B, and we're focusing on language use. So A, both use statistics to support their points. Well, if we have a quick look at the texts, text A, is it using statistics? Statistics are facts that have numbers in them. Well, yes, we've got statistic here. The average person requires 45 hours of lessons and 22 hours of additional practice. So that's the statistic. Have we got any statistics in text B? Well, yes, we do. We've got mentions of numbers here used to explain how many driving licenses people hold and how many car trips they take, all using statistics. So yes, both use statistics to support their points. B, both use questions to make the reader think. Now if you look through the text, you just want to be scanning for question marks here, and there are no question marks in either text if you have a look at them. C, both use direct address to involve the reader. So here, direct address, that means we're looking for uses of the word you, your, where the writer is speaking directly to the reader. We do have this in text A. If you have a look at it, you can see that it uses the word you, but there is no uses of direct address in text B. And finally, both use quotations to share ideas from experts. So there's no quotes in either text. We've got to be looking for these quotation marks to be trying to find any examples of quotations, and they're not used in either text. So for this question, you really just need to brush up on your language techniques and think about which texts are using them. Question 15. Your friend is interested in why people want to be able to drive. Identify one piece of evidence from each of the 3 texts that tells you why people want to be able to drive. So here we need to use each of the texts, so text A, B and C, and we need to find quotations, pieces of evidence that tell us why people want to be able to drive. So we're focusing on reasons for wanting to drive, and the student has correctly identified 3 reasons using evidence, using quotations. So in text A, they say that people want to drive because it is an introduction to adult life. In text B, it is a stepping stone to adulthood, so very similar to text A there. And I can get to college much more quickly. So these are all good reasons why people want to drive.